71 elementary school students, 18% of the boys had severe suicidal thoughts. There is no reason why a child who has their whole life ahead of them should be bullied by an individual, and it's just very sad. It's very sad. So the significant effects of cyberbullying, there were 3 significant events out in the media, which I'm going to be discussing. Occurrence number 1, Duke University, May 2010. A female student produced a false senior thesis presentation illustrating her sexual endeavors with 13 male students at the university. Using real names and pictures, this female forwarded false theses to 3 of her friends, which then they distributed all throughout YouTube. So this is a form of cyberbullying. It's embarrassment at its finest. And these male students were very badly affected by this at the university. Occurrence number 2, you may have heard about this as I discussed before, at Rutgers University. Tiger Clementi happened September of 2011. This picture was taken off of a public site. Tyler Clementi's on the left, and his roommate that basically publicized his sexual endeavors with his male friend. After the gentleman found out, he jumped off the bridge and shot and killed himself. Talented violinist, had a scholarship. It's just so sad. So, without his knowledge, the male student's roommate had installed a webcam to monitor the activities going on in the room. The contents of the webcam of the male student have the sexual encounter with another man were broadcasted across Twitter. After the male student realized he had been taped, he committed suicide by jumping off the George Washington Bridge. Occurrence number 3, December 2012, involving catfishing. So catfishing means you're pretending to be something that you're not. You create a fake identity, impersonating another individual through social media sites. This happened to a Heisman Trophy candidate and Notre Dame football player. He had a 3-year fake online relationship that he thought was real, with a female that he only communicated through the phone and social media, which he discovered never even existed. This really tarnished his reputation as a football player. And as you can see, cyberbullying can be done in all shapes and forms. So why is cyberbullying so important? The increase in detrimental detrimental acts such as cyberbullying increases the need for awareness of cyberbullying in higher education. A study done by Englander et al. 2009 of 283 freshman students found that 8% were cyberbullied, 3% were cyber perpetrators, and 50% of cyberbullies were cyberbullied in college. A study by McDonald, Roberts, and Pittman, 2010, of 439 higher education students. As you can see, the percentages just confirms why this is so important. Again, another study, Gilroy, 2013, 22% of university students reported being cyberbullied as detrimental than actual bullying. Washington, 2014, 12% of students had been cyberbullied. So with the increased occurrence of cyber aggression in education environments, additional studies are needed to prevent this in the future. Conclusions and implications. So what I found was that cyberbullying is a big problem based on all of these studies. There is a major lack on how to prevent it, and there is additional need of experiential research. The focus should be on cyberbullying in higher education. One of my mentors and colleagues actually had to leave her position because she was cyberbullied by a different student because she couldn't give them the grade that they wanted. So teachers are being cyberbullied by students. It's very sad. Recommendations. Future research should focus on aspects such as legal concerns of cyberbullying and traditional bullying, looking into traits of cyberbullies. Responsibility of higher education administrators taking control of unfathomable acts going within their school system. So educators should definitely be aware of what's going on, possibly having, once a month or once a year, workshops that would educate them on how they could help their students. The findings may also be useful to develop effective prevention strategies as well as intervention strategies for the future. So these are my references. Any questions?
I was just wondering, because you're talking about the faculty member, so I was wondering if you had come across any studies about cyberbullying specifically to faculty, in particular with respect to white supremacist students and targeting faculty of color or people who identify along the gender spectrum, because back home in our institution, that we're having a big problem with that now, with students who are either in the classroom and out of the classroom who are absolutely sort of like attacking and bullying faculty of color and people who are good and out of the gender spectrum. So I was wondering if you came across any, and particularly in the past 2 years, and so I was wondering if you came across anything that sort of spoke.
I've read many studies about what you said, but in specifics to time frame, off the top of my head, I don't remember. But if I can get your information, I can forward you those studies. I would be happy to. Yeah, but it's definitely an issue. I thought it was just for the students. I'm like, how do you bully a professor into giving you a grade? I found a link where a lot of these students have had their parents kind of like be the parent in the background in elementary school, kind of fighting for them, and when they don't get their way, they bully their professors, which is sad. Yes?
I just wondered if you came across any really strong solutions to the problem, because I think it's great that you're presenting about this, because it's a really big issue. I think across, it's a global issue, I think. And what we're seeing in our region is that students are even creating spam accounts, so fake accounts, and it's to the point where one particular student may have 10 different accounts. And so it's so hard to control that, and the parents don't know how many accounts they have. There's no way to find out. Even as far as getting into those accounts and finding out the passwords, and it's nearly impossible to do. And what I'm seeing is that there aren't any really good solutions. Like nothing is working that we're doing, because we're trying to talk to our students, talk to our children, have intervention strategies where the counselor comes in the school and talks to students, to just all kinds of intervention strategies, but nothing seems to be working. So I'm just wondering if you found anything that was particularly powerful, or cases where something that they did worked.
The only thing that I found was there were like workshops that were conducted where awareness was brought. I feel like maybe is not sufficient. That could be possibly something to look into for future research. I totally agree with you. Sometimes I feel like it's out of our control, and unless we actually look into these studies to find effective ways, because everybody's an adult and you can't control it. You can't control anybody. I think it's a control issue at this point. It also stems from childhood, I think. If that person wasn't raised properly or had their own issues, or you don't really know the background of certain people, and certain people you can't control. But what you said definitely would be something to look into. Thank you.
Are you aware of any program, because as I was hearing from you about cyberbullying of faculties,
Yeah.
professors, because they wouldn't give them an A+. At our universities, we actually have an office that is actually talking about non-academic misconduct. And so the
Anonymous.
university actually support us, that we can report to them, we don't have to deal with it. The office would actually deal with it. I agree with you that, I'm wondering whether there are any connections, because bullying had happened for a long time. Now we have this cyberspace where people can be even more hidden. But the kind of inhumanity and cruelty that's going on, are there any strategies, as our colleague pointed out, that actually come from the non-cyberbullying part? Because I think that sometimes it's not necessarily had to do with the parenting. I think some parents got blamed because their children are out there going with this group mentality. We recently had a horrifying case in Canada in a very elitist boys' school, Catholic school, where one young man was, adolescent young man was, going through hazing by peers in the sports team, and someone taped it and put it on the internet. And then, but now it's become a legal police case. But the I find it very disturbing when the school representative said that, oh, the student is fine. I don't think the student will be fine.
No.
So those are the type of thing that I think we probably could do something, but we're also overwhelmed with everything else in the world, like the president's here building a wall. So those type of things distract us, but maybe a counter strategy is we need to reintegrate how do we nurture humanity in everything we do, in every subject that we teach, because it's not really just about technology and skills for getting a job. We need to be human to be able to survive.
Definitely. I think definitely being an educator. I'm not an educator, I'm an aspiring educator. There has to be a human aspect, there has to be empathy involved. Not only in the subject matter that you're teaching, but in the human aspect as well. Perhaps educators should have a psychology degree or something like that, like a dual degree, to understand the psychology of students and what they go through, because unless you've gone through something, you're not really gonna understand what the other person has gone through, right? I think it would be really, just my personal perspective, if a student comes to, or there should be a free therapist. There is a free therapist on most campuses where students can just go talk about it. Most students don't take advantage of it. I know there were times where I was dealing with anxiety and stress and all these things. You're just too lazy to go. I think that needs to be emphasized to these students, because one act of cyberbullying or bullying can really change your life. Maybe we need to put an emphasis on that students need to take advantage of it. Again, we can't control what they do. We can only put it out there, but that's my take on it.
Could something like rate my professor be considered cyberbullying?
Rate my professor, like
Yeah.
they put, okay, cyberbullying. I think that students have, I think that's kind of like a form of like social media where, I don't know if you guys know what Rate My Professor is, but it's a website where students get to rank all their professors and they write really awful things on there. Sometimes I will read these comments and I'm like, I'm not so sure I want to be with this professor. It's like the Yelp for professors, basically. It could be. It depends on how the educator wants to take that. You can laugh about it and be offended by it, or you can, let it go. Because if the student is willing to do that too, because let's say Yelp, they write like really bad reviews about restaurants, that's like harassing a restaurant, right? So I don't think that's cyberbullying. I think the professor just needs to let it go.
Okay. Thank you.
But don't we have the choice to go to the website if it is really harassment?
If it's like harassment, if it's something